Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm really glad you decided to join me here tonight. Before we get started, if you're enjoying what we do here, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you feel moved to, but only if this is truly your kind of content. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I always find it fascinating how our community spans across so many time zones, all of us awake when perhaps we should be sleeping. This video has no ads interrupting our time together, so just settle in, get comfortable, maybe turn down those lights, because once we begin, the night tends to stretch longer than it should. Let's start. Story 1. The Garrison apartments were never meant to house the living. That's what Mrs. Chen told me the day I moved into Unit 4B, her gnarled fingers gripping my forearm with surprising strength as I carried boxes past her door. She was ancient, perhaps 90, with eyes that watered constantly, but never seemed to blink. "You're the 7th tenant in that unit this year," she said, her accent thick with something Eastern European that I couldn't quite place. The last one, she didn't even make it 3 weeks. Left everything behind, even her cat. I should have listened. I should have turned around, demanded my deposit back, found literally anywhere else to live. But I was desperate. The divorce had cleaned me out financially, and the Garrison was the only place in Seattle that would rent to someone with my credit score. Besides, I told myself, old women say strange things. Superstition, paranoia. The apartment itself seemed fine when I first toured it. A bit dated, sure, with those popcorn ceilings from the 70s and avocado green appliances in the kitchenette. The carpet was worn thin in spots, particularly in the hallway leading to the single bedroom, but it was clean, relatively speaking, and the rent was manageable on my salary from the call center. The first week passed without incident. I worked my shifts, came home exhausted, microwaved dinners, and fell asleep watching streaming services on my laptop. Normal, mundane, exactly what I needed after the chaos of the separation. It was on day 8 that I noticed the smell. Faint at first, barely there. Like meat left out too long. That sickly sweet rot that clings to the back of your throat. I checked the fridge, the trash, under the sink. Nothing. I assumed it was coming from another unit. Maybe Mrs. Chen's, traveling through the old building's ventilation. I bought air fresheners, plugged them into every outlet. Lavender and vanilla trying desperately to mask something far less pleasant. The smell grew stronger each night. By the second week, I was sleeping with my windows open despite the November cold, breathing through my mouth, trying not to gag. I complained to the building manager, a perpetually bored 20-something named Derek, who spent most of his time vaping in the parking lot. He came up, sniffed around my apartment for maybe 90 seconds and shrugged. "Don't smell nothing," he said. "Might want to check your drains." I did. I poured bleach, baking soda, vinegar, every home remedy the internet suggested. The smell persisted. That's when the dreams started. Always the same. I'd be standing in my apartment in the dark, the only light coming from the street lamps outside filtering through my curtains. And I'd know, with that certainty you only have in dreams, that someone else was in the apartment with me, standing in the hallway, watching. I'd try to move, to turn on a light, to scream, but my body wouldn't respond. I could only stand there, frozen, feeling their presence drawing closer. Hot breath on the back of my neck, fingers that didn't quite touch my skin but hovered just above it, close enough to feel their heat. I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, the smell of rot so overpowering that I'd run to the bathroom and vomit. This happened 4 nights in a row. On the 5th night, I didn't dream at all. Instead, I woke to the sound of footsteps, not in the hallway outside my apartment, but in the hallway inside it. The one leading from the living room to my bedroom. Slow, deliberate steps. The particular sound of bare feet on worn carpet. My heart hammered so violently, I thought I might pass out. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and pointed it toward my open bedroom door. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but I could still hear them. The footsteps had stopped directly outside my bedroom. I could hear breathing now, ragged and wet, like someone struggling with fluid in their lungs. I did what any rational person would do. I called the police. They arrived 12 minutes later. 2 officers who looked like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. They searched the apartment thoroughly. Checked the windows, the locks, even the closets. All secure. No signs of forced entry. No one hiding in the shadows. They were professional about it. Didn't make me feel stupid, but I could see it in their eyes. Just another stressed out woman, alone, letting her imagination run wild. After they left, I sat on my couch until sunrise, every light in the apartment blazing. I called in sick to work. I couldn't stay there, not during the day when exhaustion made my hands shake and my eyes blur. I went to a coffee shop, spent 8 hours drinking lattes and trying to convince myself I was having some kind of breakdown. Stress, trauma, the divorce. My mind manufacturing threats because my life felt out of control. That's what the internet said when I searched symptoms of paranoia and auditory hallucinations. I almost convinced myself. Almost. But when I returned to my apartment that evening, I found my bedroom door closed. I'd left it open. I was certain of it. I stood in my living room, staring at that closed door for a full 5 minutes before I worked up the courage to approach it. My hand trembled as I reached for the handle. The metal was cold, far colder than it should have been. I pushed it open. My room looked exactly as I'd left it. Unmade bed, clothes draped over the chair, laptop charging on the nightstand. But something felt wrong. The air was different, heavier, and the smell, God, the smell was overwhelming now, concentrated in this room, like something had died inside the walls. I started sleeping on the couch after that, told myself it was temporary, just until I could find a new place. But finding a new apartment took time, money, energy I didn't have. Days turned into weeks. The footsteps became regular, every night between 2 and 4 in the morning. Always in the hallway, always stopping at different points. Sometimes outside my bedroom, sometimes outside the bathroom. Once, memorably, they stopped directly behind the couch where I was pretending to sleep. My eyes squeezed shut, barely breathing, praying for sunrise. I stopped inviting people over. The few friends I still had after the divorce tried to check on me, concerned by my increasingly erratic texts and missed calls. I made excuses. I was sick. I was busy. I was fine, really. Just needed some space. The truth was, I couldn't let anyone else experience what was happening in that apartment. What if they heard it too? What if they didn't? I didn't know which possibility frightened me more. Mrs. Chen started leaving things outside my door. Small bundles of herbs tied with red string. A bowl of salt. Once, a mirror turned to face the hallway. I never asked her about them. I'd step over them on my way to work, and when I returned, they'd be gone, replaced by new offerings. Some part of me was grateful. Some part of me understood she was trying to help, in the only way she knew how. It wasn't working. Month 2 in the Garrison apartments. I looked like hell. 20 pounds lighter, dark circles under my eyes so pronounced that my coworkers asked if I was sick. I told them insomnia. Not technically a lie. I was existing on maybe 3 hours of sleep a night, stolen in brief increments, always jolting awake to the sound of those footsteps, or that wet, labored breathing. My performance at work suffered. I got written up twice for mistakes, for zoning out during calls, for snapping at customers who didn't deserve my misplaced anger. I started researching the building's history. If something was wrong with my apartment, maybe there was a reason. Maybe someone had died there. Maybe I was experiencing some kind of residual haunting, echoes of trauma soaked into the walls. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The Garrison Apartments had been a hospice facility in the 1950s, a place where people came to die before dying at home became common practice again. Records were sparse, but I found newspaper articles, obituaries, mentions of the building. Over 300 people had died there during its 20-year operation as a hospice. 300 people, taking their last breaths, expelling their final moments into the air I was now breathing. Unit 4B had been a triple room, 3 beds, 3 dying people at a time. The articles described it as a peaceful place, compassionate care, all the euphemisms we use to soften death's reality. But I kept thinking about what it must have actually been like. The sounds, the smells, the fear, all of that absorbed into the walls, the floors, the very foundation of the building. I took the articles to Derek, showed him what I'd found, demanded to know if the building disclosed this history to tenants. He barely glanced at the papers. "That was like 70 years ago," he said. "What do you want me to do about it?" "I want you to let me break my lease," I said. He laughed. "Read your contract. You're in for a year. You break it, you owe 6 months' rent." I didn't have 6 months' rent. I barely had next month's rent. I was trapped. That night, the footsteps came earlier than usual, just after midnight. I was lying on the couch, staring at the ceiling, when I heard them start. But this time, they didn't stay in the hallway. They came into the living room. I could track their movement by sound alone. Around the couch, past the kitchenette, to the window. They stopped. I couldn't help it. I looked. The street lamp outside cast enough light for me to see most of the living room. It was empty, but I could still hear breathing right by the window, and as I watched, frozen in terror, I saw the curtain move. Not like wind was blowing it, like someone was standing behind it, their body pressing against the fabric, the shape of a head, shoulders becoming visible in silhouette. I screamed. Probably not the smartest move, but I couldn't contain it any longer. The shape vanished instantly. The breathing stopped. The apartment fell silent except for my ragged sobs. I called my sister in Portland. It was past midnight, and she had work in the morning, but she answered. She always answered. I broke down completely, told her everything. The smell, the footsteps, the breathing, the history of the building. I expected her to tell me I was losing it. Instead, she said something that made everything so much worse. "Sarah," she said quietly, "when's the last time you actually left your bedroom?" "What?" I asked. "Your bedroom. When's the last time you slept in your bed instead of the couch?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. "Why?" She was silent for a long moment. "I think you need to check your bedroom," she said finally. "I think you need to look very carefully and tell me what you see." "I don't want to go in there," I whispered. "Sarah, the smell. The smell is strongest in there." "I know, but I need you to look. Please." I don't know why I listened to her. Maybe because she was the only person who hadn't dismissed what I was experiencing. Maybe because some part of me needed to know. Needed to confront whatever was happening instead of cowering on my couch every night. I stood up, phone pressed to my ear, and walked to the bedroom door. It was closed again. I opened it. The smell hit me like a physical force. I gagged, covering my mouth with my sleeve, but I forced myself to step inside, to turn on the light. The room looked normal, exactly as I'd left it weeks ago. Unmade bed, clothes on the chair, laptop on the nightstand. "What am I looking for?" I asked. "I don't know," my sister said. "Just look carefully. Tell me everything you see." I did. I described every detail, fighting the urge to vomit from the stench. The bed, the window, the closet door slightly ajar. The thin carpet, worn especially thin in that path from the door to the bed. "Wait," I said. "Sarah, the carpet. What about it?" "There's a spot, right, by the closet. It's darker than the rest." I approached it slowly, crouched down. The darker patch was about 6 feet long, maybe 3 feet wide, vaguely human-shaped. I touched it. The carpet was damp. I pulled my hand back and saw my fingers were stained with something dark and sticky. "Oh God," I said. "What? What is it?" "I think it's blood." My sister told me to get out immediately, to call the police, not to touch anything else. But I couldn't move. I was staring at that stain, at the shape of it, understanding finally what I'd been hearing these past weeks. Not a ghost. Not some spiritual echo of the building's past. Something else. Something worse. I heard the breathing start again. Behind me. In the room with me. I turned slowly. The closet door, which had been slightly ajar, was now fully open. I could see inside. See the figure standing there, pressed against the back wall, partially hidden by my hanging clothes. A man, if you could still call him that. Emaciated, skin gray, eyes sunken deep into his skull, but still alive. Still watching me. "Oh," he said, his voice like gravel scraping against rust. "You finally found me. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my phone or opening the apartment door. I remember Mrs. Chen standing in the hallway, unsurprised, as I sprinted past her screaming. I remember the cold night air on my face as I burst out of the building. I remember calling 911, my words tumbling over each other incoherently. The police came. They found him in my closet, where he'd apparently been living for 6 weeks. The previous tenant, the one who'd left everything behind, including her cat. She'd filed a missing persons report that had gone nowhere. He'd been her boyfriend. When she left, he'd stayed, hiding, surviving on food stolen from my fridge while I was at work, drinking water from my bathroom sink at night. The smell had been him. The footsteps had been him, emerging from his hiding place when he thought I was asleep. The breathing had been him, standing over me, watching me. The blood on the carpet had been from an infected wound on his leg that had slowly been poisoning him. He was arrested, hospitalized, charged with a dozen crimes. I moved out that day, forfeiting my deposit, breaking my lease, not caring about the consequences. My sister let me stay with her in Portland. It took months before I could sleep through the night, years before I could live alone again. And I never stopped wondering how many nights he'd stood there in the dark, watching me sleep on that couch, separated from me by just a few feet, and my own oblivious exhaustion. Mrs. Chen died last year. I saw her obituary online. The article mentioned she'd lived in the Garrison apartments for over 40 years, that she'd been a fixture in the building, known for her protective nature toward other tenants. I think about her offerings left outside my door, her warnings I dismissed. She'd known. Somehow she'd known what was happening, or at least that something was wrong. I wish I'd listened sooner. I wish I'd trusted my instincts instead of doubting my sanity. But mostly I think about that man's face, gray and sunken, emerging from the dark of my closet. The way he said you finally found me. Like it was a game we'd been playing. Like he'd been waiting for that moment of discovery, patient as death. The Garrison apartments still stand. I looked it up recently. Unit 4B is occupied. Someone new, someone who probably has no idea what happened there. I hope they're okay. I hope the locks are better now. I hope they listen when Mrs. Chen's replacement, whoever that might be, tells them something is wrong. Because sometimes the monsters we fear aren't ghosts or demons or echoes of the past. Sometimes they're just men hiding in closets, waiting in the dark. And that, I think, is somehow worse. Story 2. My daughter Emma learned to speak at 9 months old. Not babbling, not mama or dada, but complete sentences. The pediatrician called it extraordinary, possibly a case for medical journals. My wife Rachel and I called it a miracle. Our brilliant little girl, advancing so fast, speaking with clarity that unnerved even us. By her first birthday, Emma was holding conversations that shouldn't have been possible. She discussed concepts, asked questions that revealed understanding far beyond her age. The park is where molecules of oxygen intersect with carbon dioxide to facilitate photosynthesis, she told me once while pushing her on the swings. I'd laughed, charmed, assuming she was parroting something from the educational videos we sometimes played for her. It was cute at first, novelty. We showed her off maybe more than we should have. Rachel's parents would video call, and we'd parade Emma out like a performing seal. Ask her about the solar system. Ask her about the water cycle. Ask her anything. She always had answers, delivered in that piping toddler voice that made the advanced vocabulary seem adorable, rather than disturbing. Our friend smiled, complimented us on our parenting, wondered what books we were reading to her. But I saw it in their eyes sometimes, that brief flicker of unease when Emma would look at them too directly, when her gaze lasted a beat too long. By 18 months, the novelty had faded. Emma spoke constantly, an endless stream of observations, questions, statements. She narrated everything, described the world with precision that began to feel clinical. The microwave operates on electromagnetic radiation at approximately 2450 megahertz. Your coffee is 92 degrees Celsius, too hot for consumption without risk of first-degree burns. That bird is a Turdus migratorius, commonly called the American robin. Feeding pattern suggests nestlings nearby. Rachel started to worry first. "This isn't normal," she said one night after we'd finally gotten Emma to sleep. "I know she's advanced, but it's not right. Something about the way she talks. She doesn't sound like a child." I defended our daughter. "She's gifted. We should be grateful. Do you know how rare this is?" Rachel looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Fear, maybe. Or recognition of something I wasn't ready to acknowledge. "I asked her today what she wanted for lunch," Rachel said quietly. "Do you know what she said?" She said nutritional requirements for optimal development at my stage include protein, complex carbohydrates, and vitamin D. She's 18 months old, and she's talking about nutritional requirements. I didn't have a good answer. Over the next few months, Emma's language continued to evolve. She stopped using contractions, spoke in formal constructions that sounded like she was reading from a textbook. She rarely asked for things she wanted, instead stating optimal outcomes. Optimal outcome would be outdoor recreation to stimulate gross motor development. optimal outcome would be story consumption to enhance neural pathway formation. She stopped calling us Mama and Dada, switched to Rachel and Michael. We tried to correct her, but she'd just tilt her head and say, "These are your designated names. Why are alternative labels necessary?" The other thing, the thing we didn't want to talk about, was that Emma seemed to have knowledge she couldn't possibly have acquired. She knew things we hadn't taught her, hadn't shown her in videos or books. She described the layout of our house before we'd taken her into certain rooms. She knew Rachel was pregnant before we did, announced it at breakfast one morning. "The fetus is approximately 4 weeks developed. You should schedule prenatal care." We'd laughed it off, but 2 days later, Rachel took a test. Positive. That's when I started keeping a journal, documenting the things Emma said, trying to find patterns or explanations. Most of it was mundane, just that eerie, too advanced speech. But some entries still make my hands shake when I read them. Entry from March 3rd. Emma told me today that the sun would develop a coronal mass ejection at 2:15 p.m. I checked the news later. A solar flare was detected at 2:13 p.m. Entry from March 17th. Emma stood at the front window for 40 minutes, not moving, just watching the street. When I asked what she was doing, she said waiting for the accident. At 4:22 p.m., 2 cars collided at the intersection visible from our window. Entry from April 2nd. Found Emma in the basement at 3 a.m. She was standing in the dark, not crying, not upset, just standing. When I asked how she'd gotten out of her crib, she said physical barriers are only effective when necessary. I don't know what that means. Rachel wanted to take Emma to specialists, psychologists, someone who could explain what was happening. I resisted. I was afraid of what they might say, afraid of what diagnosis or label they might attach to our daughter. But after the incident with Rachel's mother, we didn't have a choice. Rachel's mother came to visit when Emma was 2. She'd been excited to see our brilliant granddaughter, had brought gifts and planned activities. Emma greeted her at the door politely. "Hello, Margaret. Your visit duration will be brief due to the cardiac event you'll experience in approximately 72 hours." We'd laughed nervously, assumed Emma had somehow picked up on her grandmother's recent complaints about chest pain. But 3 days later, exactly 72 hours after Emma's greeting, Margaret suffered a massive heart attack. She survived, thankfully, but the incident shattered something in Rachel. The specialists were baffled. Emma's cognitive tests showed development off the charts, but her social-emotional markers were non-existent. She displayed no empathy, no attachment, no typical childhood responses. One psychologist suggested autism spectrum disorder with exceptionally high intelligence. Another proposed a unique savant syndrome. A third simply said he didn't know, had never seen anything like it. We tried interventions: speech therapy, occupational therapy, behavioral therapy. None of them worked because nothing was wrong with Emma's abilities. The problem, if you could call it that, was that she was too capable, too aware, too knowing. Shortly after her 3rd birthday, Emma stopped sleeping. Not insomnia, not difficulty sleeping. She simply stopped. We'd put her to bed, go through all the routines, and then lie awake ourselves listening to her move around her room. We installed a camera to see what she did all night. The footage disturbed us more than the sleeplessness. Emma would stand at her window, motionless, for hours. Or she'd sit cross-legged in the center of her room, eyes open, staring at nothing. Once, we watched her stack blocks with impossible precision, building architectural structures that defied her motor skills. then deliberately knock them down and rebuild them identically. When we asked why she didn't sleep, she said, "Sleep is unnecessary. My functions continue optimally without it." The night it all came apart, I woke to find Emma standing beside our bed. I don't know how long she'd been there, just staring at us in the dark. When I gasped, startled, she didn't flinch. "Michael," she said calmly, "I need to explain something." Rachel woke too, reached for the lamp. In the sudden light, Emma looked different somehow. Her eyes, always preternaturally aware, seemed older. Ancient, almost. "I'm not who you think I am," she said. "I'm not your daughter. Your daughter lasted approximately 8 minutes after birth before her brain stopped functioning. I was asked to occupy this vessel, to experience human development, to gather data." "What are you talking about?" Rachel whispered. Emma, or whatever she was, tilted her head in that characteristic gesture. "I'm an observer. My species doesn't have a name you could pronounce, but we've been studying yours for a very long time. This immersion, occupying developing humans, allows us to understand your cognition from the inside. Usually we're better at mimicking appropriate behavior. My assignment was flawed. I advanced the speech centers too quickly. I called for help, but both Rachel and I were frozen, unable to process what we were hearing. We should have noticed I accessed too much knowledge," Emma continued. "Made predictions impossible for a human child. But you wanted so badly to believe I was just gifted, exceptional, special. Your parental bias made the deception easier." "Please," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. "Please stop." Emma looked at her with something that might have been curiosity. "You're experiencing emotional distress. That's one aspect of humanity we still don't understand. The ability to feel pain from information, from concepts. It's inefficient but fascinating." I think I finally moved then, lunged toward Emma. Though I don't know what I plan to do. Grab her, shake her, make her stop. But she stepped back with superhuman speed. And suddenly, she didn't look like our toddler anymore. Her proportions seemed wrong, her movements too fluid. "My time here is ending," she said. "I've gathered sufficient data. This vessel," she gestured at herself, "at Emma's body, will cease functioning at sunrise. You'll be able to tell them it was a brain aneurysm. Sudden, painless, tragic. No one will question it." "Wait," I said. "Wait, if you're not Emma, where is she? Where's our daughter?" "I told you. She ceased functioning minutes after birth. The vessel was empty when I arrived. Your actual daughter never achieved consciousness. You've been grieving her this entire time without knowing it. Everything went blurry after that. I remember Rachel screaming, remember trying to grab Emma as she walked calmly back to her bedroom. I remember the two of us following her, standing helplessly in her doorway as she climbed into bed and closed her eyes. "It won't hurt," she said. "That's a kindness, I suppose. I made sure the ending wouldn't hurt. We called 911 at dawn when we found her. They tried to resuscitate. They failed. The autopsy showed a massive brain hemorrhage, exactly as predicted. Sudden, painless, tragic. Everyone was so sorry for our loss, told us how special Emma had been, how extraordinary. If only they knew. Rachel and I separated 6 months later. We couldn't look at each other without remembering that night, those words. We had another child eventually, with other partners. My son is beautifully, wonderfully average. He babbles. He calls me Dada. He learned to walk late and speaks at exactly the pace pediatricians expect. And every night, I thank God for his precious, perfect normalcy. Because I know now that sometimes the gift you think you want is actually the nightmare you'll never wake from. Sometimes the miracle is the monster. And sometimes you spend your whole life wondering if your daughter, your real daughter, was really gone before you ever held her. Or if some part of her was still in there, trapped, screaming, watching as something else piloted her body and spoke with her voice. I hope Emma, our Emma, never achieved consciousness like it said. I hope she never suffered. But late at night, when I can't sleep, I remember the first time she looked at me and said Dada, the only time she used that word. I remember something in her eyes, something that looked like recognition, like love, like humanity. And I wonder if I'm wrong, if maybe our daughter was in there somewhere, tiny and terrified, pushed aside by something vast and alien, unable to do anything but watch as her parents cooed over the thing that had taken her place. I'll never know. That might be the worst part. I'll never know if the thing we loved was ever really her at all. Story 3. The Clearwater Hotel has been abandoned since 1994. Everyone in Jasper County knows not to go inside. The fence around it is topped with barbed wire, decorated with no trespassing signs, and there are rumors the property owner monitors it with cameras. But I was 17 and drunk and showing off for Melissa Brennan, who'd agreed to come parking with me only if I proved I wasn't boring. Breaking into the Clearwater seemed like a good way to prove that. Seemed like a lot of things that night that turned out to be very, very wrong. We cut through the fence in the back where the chain link had already been loosened by previous trespassers. The hotel loomed above us, 6 stories of decaying grandeur, broken windows like empty eyes. Melissa hesitated. Maybe this is a bad idea, she said. I kissed her to shut her up, tasted beer and cherry lip gloss, and pulled her toward the service entrance. The door was unlocked. Should have been our first clue to leave, but teenage invincibility is a hell of a drug. Inside, the smell hit us immediately. Mold, rot, and something else underneath. Something organic and wrong. We used our phones as flashlights, the beams cutting through darkness thick enough to feel. The Clearwater had been a luxury destination in the 1920s. Hosted famous guests, survived the Depression. Then the murders happened. 1973. 7 people killed over the course of one weekend. Guests, staff, slaughtered in their rooms, in the hallways, in the ballroom during a wedding reception. The killer was never caught. The hotel never recovered. It limped along for another 20 years, but everyone could feel it. The wrongness, the stain. Eventually it just stopped, closed up, left to rot. We explored the first floor. Melissa filming everything on her phone. Wanted proof we'd been brave enough to go inside. The lobby was a disaster of collapsed ceiling tiles and graffiti. The front desk still had a rotary phone sitting on it, coated in dust an inch thick. We found the ballroom, its chandelier on the floor, in a burst of crystal and rust. This is where they found the bride, I told Melissa, trying to sound like I knew more than I did. Stabbed like 50 times. That's horrible, Melissa said, but she was smiling. This was exactly the kind of thrill she'd wanted. We're so putting this on our college applications. We took the stairs to the second floor where the guest rooms were. Most of the doors hung open, revealing interiors stripped of anything valuable. A few still had furniture, beds with bare mattresses stained with God knows what, dressers with drawers pulled out and scattered. We were checking out room 214, laughing about the wallpaper pattern, some nightmarish floral design, when we heard it. Footsteps, above us, on the 3rd floor. We froze. Somebody else is here, Melissa whispered. Probably just other kids, I said, trying to sound confident. But my heart was hammering. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, back and forth, pacing the hallway directly above us. "We should go," Melissa said. Agreed. We headed back toward the stairs, moving quickly but trying not to run. That's when we heard the humming. Someone on the third floor was humming a tune. Old-fashioned, the kind of melody you'd hear in a 1940s movie. It was a woman's voice, pleasant, almost cheerful. Melissa grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. We were at the top of the stairs when the humming stopped. Then a voice called down, so clear it could have been right next to us. "Are you here for the wedding?" We ran. No more pretending to be brave. We bolted down those stairs, through the lobby toward the service entrance we'd come through. Behind us, the voice called out again, closer now. "Don't leave. The party's just starting." We burst out into the night, sprinted across the overgrown lawn, squeezed through the gap in the fence. Didn't stop until we reached my car parked on the access road half a mile away. We sat there, breathing hard, not speaking. Finally, Melissa said, "What the hell was that?" "Squatters, maybe. Someone living in there." We'd almost convinced ourselves that's all it was when Melissa pulled out her phone to look at the video she'd filmed. We watched in silence as she scrolled through the footage. Lobby, ballroom, hallway, room 214. Then the screen went black. The video cut out exactly when we heard the footsteps, even though her phone showed she'd kept recording for another 8 minutes. There was no video, just audio. And in that audio, underneath our panicked breathing and running footsteps, you could hear it, the humming, and something else. Other voices, dozens of them, whispering, talking over each other. And one voice, louder than the rest, saying over and over, "Stay with us. Stay with us. Stay with us." We told ourselves we'd never go back. But that's the thing about places like the Clearwater. They get in your head. The next week, I couldn't stop thinking about it, dreaming about it. I'd wake up hearing that humming, that voice asking about the wedding. Melissa admitted she was having the same experience. 2 weeks after our first visit, we went back. We told ourselves it was to make sense of what happened, to prove it wasn't supernatural. Just our imaginations running wild. We went during the day this time, parked right out front. The no trespassing signs seemed more pointed somehow, like they were meant specifically for us. We found the same gap in the fence, same service entrance. In daylight, the hotel looked more pathetic than scary. Water damage, structural decay, pigeons roosting in the rafters. We went straight to the second floor, to the spot where we'd heard the humming. Nothing, just empty hallways and the sound of wind through broken windows. "See," I said. "Nothing here, just our imagination." But Melissa was looking at something on the wall. Photos. Someone had taped up photographs all along the hallway, old black and white pictures. I approached slowly. They were photos from the hotel's heyday. Guests posing in the lobby, staff lined up in uniform, a wedding party in the ballroom, the bride and groom cutting an elaborate cake. "These weren't here before," Melissa said. "I know." The photos had aged weirdly, the paper yellowed, corners curled, but the tape holding them was new, fresh. Someone had put these up recently. We moved down the hallway, looking at each picture. The same wedding appeared in multiple shots. The happy couple, so young, bridesmaids in pink dresses, groomsmen in powder blue tuxedos, 1970s fashion. Then we reached the end of the hallway, and the photos changed. These weren't professional shots. These were crime scene photos. The lobby splattered with blood. A body in the ballroom. The bride, her dress soaked red. Staff members slumped in the kitchen. Guest rooms with doors kicked in. and horrors beyond. I tore my eyes away, felt vomit rising in my throat. "Who would put these up?" Melissa asked. "Who would?" That's when we heard the footsteps again. Third floor. Pacing. The humming started. That same cheerful tune. And the voice. "You came back. I knew you would." We ran again, but this time something was different. The hallways seemed longer. We'd passed the same rooms multiple times, even though we knew we were running straight. The stairs. Where were the stairs? Melissa was crying. The footsteps were behind us now, keeping pace. The humming louder. We finally found the stairs, took them 2 at a time. But when we reached the bottom, we weren't in the lobby. We were on the 3rd floor. Impossible. We'd gone down. I'd counted the flights. But here we were, standing in a hallway that looked exactly like the 2nd floor, except the photos on the wall were different now. They showed us, Melissa and me, from our first visit. Pictures of us exploring the lobby, checking out the ballroom, standing in room 214. Someone had been following us that night, photographing us, and we never knew. There, at the end of the hallway, was a door. The only closed door on the entire floor. And from behind it, the humming. Melissa grabbed my hand. "We have to open it. No, we have to, or we'll never leave." I don't know why, but I believed her. We approached the door. I reached for the handle. It was warm, like someone had been holding it on the other side. I pushed it open. The room beyond was pristine. No decay, no damage. It looked like a hotel room from 50 years ago, perfectly preserved. The bed was made with hospital corners. The curtains were drawn, and sitting in a chair by the window was a woman in a bride's dress. The dress was pink with old blood. She looked at us and smiled. "You came to the wedding," she said. "That's so sweet. The others are already here." She gestured to the bed. Under it, in the closet, I could see them now. Bodies, the other victims from 1973. They'd never left. They were still here, waiting. Melissa screamed. The sound broke whatever spell was holding us in place. We turned and ran, and this time, when we found the stairs, they worked. They led down, all the way to the ground floor, and we burst out the same service entrance we'd come through. We made it to the car. We drove away. But when I got home and checked my phone, I had a new photo in my gallery, one I didn't take. It showed me and Melissa standing in that room on the 3rd floor, the bride sitting behind us in her bloody dress, and in the bottom corner, a caption, "Thanks for coming. See, you soon." That was 6 months ago. I haven't seen Melissa since that day. She moved to another state to live with her dad. Wouldn't even talk to me before she left. And every night, I dream about the Clearwater Hotel, about walking its hallways, about finding that room, about the bride asking me to stay. Last week, I woke up with a photo on my nightstand, one that hadn't been there when I fell asleep. It was a picture of me sleeping in my bed, taken from the doorway of my room. In the background, you can see her, the bride, standing in my hallway, watching. The caption says, "Almost time to come home." I'm writing this down so if anything happens, someone will know. The Clearwater Hotel isn't abandoned. It's occupied. The people who died there never left. And now they're coming for the people who've seen them. If you live in Jasper County, don't go to the Clearwater. And if you've already been there, if you've seen things you can't explain, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Because they don't let you leave. Not really. Not ever. Story 4. I used to work security for Belmont Mall, 3rd shift, when the stores were closed and the hallways echoed with every footstep. It was easy work. Boring, mostly. I'd make my rounds, check the doors, watch security monitors from a tiny office that smelled like burnt coffee and electrical wiring. The pay was decent for what essentially amounted to being alone with my thoughts for 8 hours. That's what I did for 3 years. Walked empty hallways, saw nothing, until I started seeing her. The first time was on a security camera. Monitor 6, which showed the upper level near the food court. I was doing my hourly check of all feeds when I caught movement on that screen. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, walking past the closed restaurants. She was wearing a yellow dress, had long dark hair, was holding a teddy bear. I sat up straight, immediately alert. How the hell had a kid gotten locked in after closing? I grabbed my flashlight and radio, headed for the food court. It was a 5-minute walk from the security office. When I got there, no one. I checked every restaurant, behind counters, in bathrooms. Nothing. No little girl. No sign anyone had been there. I radioed my supervisor, told him what I'd seen. He said I was probably seeing things. Shadows and reflections playing tricks on tired eyes. Happens all the time with night shift. I went back to the office and reviewed the footage. The girl was there, clear as day, walking past Taco Bell and the Chinese place. She walked the length of the food court, then turned toward the camera and looked up at it directly. Her face was perfectly calm. Then she turned and walked out of frame. I couldn't explain it. I didn't see her again for a week. The second time I saw her in person, I was on my rounds checking the anchor stores. Macy's has 4 floors, and protocol required I check every level. I was on the 3rd floor, women's wear, when I heard it. A child's laughter, high and sweet, echoing off the racks of clothes. "Hello?" I called out. "Security. Is someone there?" More laughter, moving away from me, deeper into the store. I followed the sound, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Between racks of dresses, I caught a glimpse of yellow fabric. The same yellow dress from the security footage. "Hey," I shouted. "Stop! You're not supposed to be here." She didn't stop. She ran, and I ran after her, my heavy boots thudding against the carpet. She was fast, impossibly fast for a little kid. She turned a corner into the shoe department. When I rounded the same corner 2 seconds later, she was gone, vanished. The shoe department was empty. I spent an hour searching that floor. Nothing. No little girl. No explanation. I filed a report. My supervisor was less dismissive this time, but told me if I saw her again to not chase her. Just radio it in and wait for backup. Easy for him to say. He wasn't the one alone in that mall at 3 in the morning. Over the next month, I saw her regularly. Always on the security cameras. Always in different parts of the mall. Children's store, bookstore, arcade, ice cream shop. Places a kid would like. She'd appear, walk around for a few minutes, look up at the camera, then vanish. I started keeping a log. Documented every sighting, 19 times in 4 weeks. Other security guards started reporting her too. Garcia saw her in the parking garage. Morrison saw her outside the movie theater. Thompson swore she tapped on the window of the security office one night when he was working, though none of the exterior cameras caught it. Management brought in someone to check the feeds. Make sure it wasn't a technical glitch. The tech guy spent 3 days reviewing footage, checking systems. He said everything was functioning normally. The girl was real, or at least really appearing on our cameras. But he couldn't explain it. That's when I started researching the mall's history. Belmont Mall opened in 1986. Before that, the land was farmland. Nothing notable. No cemetery. No historic sites. Nothing that screamed haunted. But I dug deeper, went to the library, Check newspaper archives. That's when I found it. August 14th, 1998. Lucy Chen, age 7, was separated from her parents during back-to-school shopping at Belmont Mall. Security searched for hours. Police were called. A full Amber Alert was issued. Lucy Chen was never found. The investigation went cold. Theories ranged from parental abduction to trafficking. No evidence was ever recovered. No suspects identified. She just disappeared somewhere between the food court and the parking lot. Walked out of existence. I found a photo attached to one of the articles. Lucy Chen smiling at the camera, wearing a yellow dress, holding a teddy bear. The same dress, the same bear. I showed the article to my supervisor. His face went pale. He'd been working at Belmont when Lucy disappeared, though he'd been day shift back then. I remember that, he said quietly. It was awful. The parents were destroyed. We all were. We searched everywhere, every store, every back room, every trash can. She was just gone. Do you think that's who we're seeing? I asked. He didn't answer. Just told me to keep doing my job and stop researching on company time. But I couldn't let it go. If Lucy Chen was haunting the mall, there had to be a reason. Ghosts, if they existed, weren't random. They were connected to trauma, to unfinished business. Lucy had disappeared 25 years ago. Why was she appearing now? What did she want? I started trying to communicate. Stupid, maybe, but I was committed at that point. When she appeared on the cameras, I'd go to that location and talk to empty hallways. Lucy, I'd say, if that's you, I want to help. Can you show me what happened to you? No response. But the sightings increased, multiple times per shift now. And she started appearing closer to me, not just on distant cameras, but on the monitor showing the hallway right outside the security office. Standing there, looking at the camera, looking at me. One night, I decided to follow her backwards. If she was retracing her last moments, maybe I could figure out where she'd actually disappeared. I pulled up every piece of footage from the night she vanished. August 14th, 1998. The tapes were old, degraded, but I could make out enough. There was Lucy on the food court cameras with her parents. They were eating ice cream. Then Lucy was alone, walking toward the bathrooms. She went into the women's room. Security cameras don't cover bathrooms, obviously, so there was a gap. When she should have come out, she didn't. That's where the trail went cold 25 years ago. But I had an idea. The women's room near the food court was scheduled for renovation next month. They were gutting it, replacing all the fixtures. What if Lucy had never left that bathroom? What if something had happened in there? Something that left her trapped? I couldn't get authorization to search the bathroom. My supervisor said I was obsessing, needed to take some time off. But I went anyway during my shift against protocol. The bathroom was old, original to the mall's construction. Tile floors, metal stalls, industrial mirrors. I'd checked every stall, looked behind toilets, in the trash receptacles. Nothing. I was about to leave when I noticed it. One of the floor tiles was different from the others, slightly discolored. I knelt down, examined it closer. The grout around this tile was newer than the surrounding grout. Someone had removed this tile and replaced it. I didn't have tools to pry it up, but I came back the next night with a screwdriver and flashlight. It took 20 minutes to work the tile loose. Underneath was concrete, but someone had chiseled out a small cavity, and in that cavity was a teddy bear. Matted, dirty, but unmistakably a teddy bear. The same teddy bear Lucy had been holding in the photo. The same teddy bear the girl in yellow carried on our security footage. I radioed my supervisor immediately. Police were called. They excavated the area. What they found under that bathroom floor made national news. Lucy Chen's body. She'd fallen through a maintenance access panel that had been improperly installed, dropped into a gap between floors. The panel had closed behind her, trapping her in a space too small to escape. She died there, alone in the dark, while hundreds of people walked above her, searching. The improperly installed panel was traced back to a contractor who'd been fired months earlier for shoddy work. He'd covered his mistakes, never reported the faulty installation, and a little girl paid the price. Lucy Chen's remains were finally laid to rest. Her parents, older now and worn by years of not knowing, were able to have closure. The contractor faced charges, though nothing that could balance the scales of justice. And the sightings stopped. I worked another 6 months at Belmont Mall. Never saw the girl in yellow again. The security cameras stayed empty during my rounds. The hallways were just hallways. But I think about her sometimes. About how she'd been trying to show us for years where she was. Walking her last path. Retracing her steps. Waiting for someone to understand. I'm glad I could help her, in the end. Glad she can rest now. Though sometimes, late at night when I'm falling asleep, I hear it. Faint and far away. A child's laughter. High and sweet. And I wonder if some part of her is still there. Still walking those halls. Still holding her teddy bear. Still 7 years old forever in Belmont Mall. Waiting for someone to find her. Story 5. The message appeared on my phone at 2:13 in the morning. A text from my own number. Get out of the house. Now. I stared at it, brain foggy with interrupted sleep. This had to be a prank. Someone spoofing my number. Teenagers with too much time and hacking skills. I almost went back to sleep. Almost. But something about the message felt urgent. Desperate. I got out of bed. Walked through my apartment, checking windows, doors, locks. Everything was secure. I lived alone on the 4th floor of a building with good security. No one was getting in. No one was here. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my number. Please, I'm begging you. Leave. Now. He's already inside. My heart rate spiked. I grabbed a kitchen knife, checked my apartment more thoroughly. Closets, under the bed, shower, empty, all empty. Who is this? I texted back. The response came immediately. It's me, you, from 7 minutes in the future. I know how that sounds, but I don't have time to explain. In 5 minutes, he's going to kick in your door. He has a gun. You die in your hallway at 2:21 a.m. I'm using the last of the time device's battery to warn you. Leave now. I stood in my kitchen, knife in hand, reading and rereading that message. This was insane. Time travel isn't real. Future versions of myself don't send warnings. This was a sick joke. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? 4 minutes. That's how long the text said I had. 4 minutes to make a decision. Believe or don't believe. Stay or leave. I thought about grabbing my keys, running out of the building in my pajamas like a lunatic. I thought about calling the police, trying to explain that my future self warned me about an intruder. How would that conversation go? 3 minutes. My hands were shaking. The rational part of my brain was screaming that this was stupid. But another part, the part that had kept my ancestors alive through countless dangers, was screaming louder. Trust your instincts. Trust the fear. 2 minutes. I grabbed my keys, my phone. Didn't bother with shoes or a coat. Just ran for my apartment door, fumbled with the locks, stumbled into the hallway. The elevator was too slow. I took the stairs, flew down 4 flights, burst into the lobby. The night security guard looked up, startled. "Ma'am, you okay?" "Someone's in my apartment," I gasped. "Or going to be." "I don't. Just call the police." He picked up his phone. I stood there in the lobby, breathing hard, feeling ridiculous. This was insane. I just fled my home because of a text message. The police arrived 8 minutes later. They went up to my apartment with the security guard. I waited in the lobby, still holding my kitchen knife, still wearing pajamas. They came back down 15 minutes later. "Your door was forced open," one officer said. "Someone kicked it in, broke the lock completely, but there's no one inside now. They're gone." I felt cold wash over me. My door. Someone had kicked in my door, exactly like the message said. "Did they take anything?" I asked. "We'll need you to come up and check, but from what we can see, nothing obvious is missing. It looks like they were interrupted, maybe heard us coming." I went back up with the officers, stepping carefully into my violated home. Everything looked normal except for the destroyed door hanging on one hinge. The police stayed while I checked. TV still there, laptop still on my desk, jewelry still in the dish on my dresser. But when I went into my bedroom, I found it. A single photograph on my pillow. It was a picture of me sleeping, taken from the foot of my bed. Taken recently based on the pajamas I was wearing in the photo. The same pajamas I was wearing now. Someone had been in my apartment before tonight, had photographed me while I slept, and had come back tonight for God knows what purpose. The police took the photo as evidence. They filed a report. I gave a statement. They asked if I had any idea who might want to hurt me. I didn't. No angry exes, no workplace conflicts, no stalkers I was aware of. I was a tax accountant. I lived quietly. This didn't make sense. I stayed with a friend that night and the next. When I finally returned to my apartment, new locks installed and security system upgraded, I still felt watched, violated. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop checking corners, closets, behind doors. And the text, the warning from my future self. I couldn't explain it. The police had examined my phone, said there was no evidence of hacking. The message really did appear to come from my own number, which shouldn't be technically possible. 1 week after the break-in, I got another text. Same pattern. My number texting me. This time it said, "In 10 minutes, you're going to have a choice. The man from last week will approach you in the parking garage. He'll apologize, say he had the wrong apartment. He'll seem harmless. He's not. Don't engage. Don't be polite. Run." My blood turned to ice. I was in my office building about to head home. The parking garage was underground, dimly lit, mostly empty by 6 p.m. when my shift ended. I forwarded the message to the police detective handling my case, then grabbed my things and left immediately. Took the elevator down to parking level 3 where my car was. The garage was quiet. My footsteps echoed off of concrete. I walked quickly toward my car, keys ready, phone in my other hand with 911 pre-dialed. That's when I saw him, a man standing near my car, just standing there. When he saw me, he smiled, walked toward me. "I'm so sorry," he called out. "I think I scared you last week. I had the wrong apartment, realized it. After I'd already broken the door, I panicked and ran. I'm so sorry." He looked normal, khakis and a button-down shirt. Maybe 35, glasses, the kind of face you'd forget immediately. But I remembered the text. I remembered the warning. I turned and ran the other direction, back toward the elevator. "Hey," he called after me. "Wait." I'm trying to apologize. I didn't wait. I hit the elevator button frantically. Heard his footsteps getting closer. The elevator was too slow. I ran for the stairwell instead, yanked the door open, took the stairs two at a time. I could hear him behind me, chasing now, not even pretending anymore. I burst into the ground floor lobby, screaming for help. Security came running. The man in the stairwell disappeared, slipped away before they could catch him. But the cameras caught his face this time. Police identified him 2 days later. His name was Aaron Petrii. He had a record: breaking and entering, assault. He'd been stalking another woman 3 years ago, spent 18 months in jail, and now he was stalking me. They arrested him at his apartment. Inside, they found hundreds of photos of me, taken over months, walking to my car, getting coffee, sitting at my desk visible through my office window, and a detailed plan written in a notebook, describing what he intended to do to me, the specific date and time he'd planned to break in again, my building layout, my schedule, all meticulously documented. The prosecutor said the evidence was overwhelming. Aaron Petrii would go to prison for a long time. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt haunted by those texts, by impossible warnings from my future self. The detective told me I'd been lucky. Lucky the first time to leave when I did. Lucky the second time to run. But it wasn't luck, was it? Someone or something had warned me. I asked the phone company to investigate further. They confirmed the text came from my number. No spoofing, no hacking. Somehow, I had texted myself. A tech specialist I consulted said theoretically, if time loops existed, if someone had access to technology that could send information backwards a few minutes, this is what it might look like. But that was science fiction, wasn't it? I haven't received any more warnings. My number texts me only when I text myself. Normal behavior. Aaron Petrii is in custody awaiting trial. I've moved to a new apartment. Better security. I'm seeing a therapist for the anxiety and sleep problems. Life is returning to normal. But sometimes, late at night, I think about those messages. About the version of me that sent them. The me that didn't get the warning the first time. The me that died in my hallway at 2:21 a.m. Is she still out there somewhere? In some timeline where the texts never came? I think about her often. About the desperate fear she must have felt, watching a stranger kick in her door. About her last moments. And I think about the version of me that somehow sent that warning. That figured out time, even for just 7 minutes, and used the last of a device's battery not to save herself, but to save me. To save another version of herself from the same fate. I don't know if I believe in time travel. I don't know how to reconcile what happened with anything I understand about physics or reality. All I know is that twice, when I needed it most, my future self reached back and saved me. And I spend a lot of time wondering if somewhere down the line I'll have the chance to do the same for someone else. To reach across time and whisper the warning they need to survive. Because if she could do it for me, maybe I can do it for the next version of myself that needs help. Maybe that's what the messages were really about. Not proving time travel exists, but proving that even alone, in our darkest moments, we're never really isolated. Some version of us is always watching out, always fighting to keep us alive, even if it's just 7 minutes into the future, even if it costs everything to send that one desperate message. Get out of the house, now. Story 6. I photograph abandoned buildings. It's my hobby, sometimes my income when magazines or websites buy the images. There's something beautiful about decay, about nature reclaiming what humans built. I've shot hundreds of locations: factories, churches, schools, hospitals. Most are exactly what you'd expect. Graffiti, collapsed roofs, animals nesting in corners. But there was one place, a place I'll never photograph again, that showed me beauty can be a trap. The Richter Building stood on the outskirts of Portland, 9 stories of Art Deco elegance left to rot. It had been a department store in the 1930s, then offices, then vacant since the 80s. Perfect for my purposes. I went on a Saturday morning, golden hour light, minimal foot traffic in the area. The ground floor was easy to access, windows broken out decades ago. Inside was a cathedral of abandonment, marble floors cracked and littered with debris. Columns that had once been grand now wore jackets of moss. The escalators were frozen mid-movement, going nowhere forever. I spent an hour shooting the ground floor, getting angles, playing with light. Then I headed up. The stairwell was intact, and I climbed to the second floor. More of the same. Retail spaces gutted, walls gone, just the skeleton of the building remaining. But the light was incredible, streaming through broken windows, catching dust motes that floated like snow. Third floor, fourth floor, each level more decayed than the last. I was in heaven, photographing everything, filling my camera's memory card with shots I knew would be stunning. It was on the 7th floor that I found the room, a single door closed in a hallway where every other door was gone entirely. The door itself was beautiful, original wood, carved with Art Deco patterns, somehow pristine despite decades of neglect. I tried the handle. Unlocked, I pushed it open. The room beyond shouldn't have existed, while the rest of the building was destroyed. This room was perfect, a small space, maybe 12 by 12, with one large window. The walls were covered in mirrors, dozens of them, all different sizes and styles, reflecting light in dizzying patterns. In the center of the room stood a single chair, ornate, upholstered in red velvet that looked brand new. I stepped inside, cautious. This had to be some kind of art installation. Someone was maintaining this room, keeping it perfect while the building crumbled around it. It was too strange, too deliberate, but it was also stunning. I raised my camera and started shooting. The mirrors caught my reflection dozens of times over, fragmented me into pieces. The light played tricks, bounced between reflective surfaces in ways that seemed to defy physics. I shot for maybe 10 minutes, moving around the room, trying different angles. That's when I noticed the reflections weren't quite right. In one mirror, my reflection raised its camera a second after I did. In another, my reflection was smiling when I wasn't. Small discrepancies, delays, differences. I lowered my camera, stared at the mirror directly in front of me. My reflection stared back, but its eyes were wrong. They were looking slightly to my left, not meeting my gaze. I waved my hand. My reflection waved back, but the motion was off, like it was underwater, lagging. I felt a spike of fear, turned to leave. That's when I saw them. In every mirror, my reflections had stopped moving with me. They were standing still, watching me, all of them. Dozens of versions of myself, motionless, staring. I ran, grabbed the door handle, yanked it open, stumbled into the hallway. I didn't look back, just ran for the stairwell, took the stairs as fast as I could, emerged into daylight and traffic noise and reality. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock my car. I drove away, didn't stop until I was back in my apartment, door locked, windows closed. I told myself it was a trick of the light, old mirrors creating illusions, my brain filling in patterns that weren't there. I almost convinced myself. Then I uploaded the photos from that day to my computer. Most were normal, beautiful shots of the building's decay. Exactly what I'd wanted. But the photos from the mirror room. I zoomed in on the first image. There I was, reflected dozens of times. But in every mirror, I was looking at the camera. Not at my reflection, at the camera lens itself. Like my reflections knew they were being photographed. In the next photo, my reflections were closer. All of them, in every mirror, had moved toward the edge of their frames. In the third photo, some of my reflections were smiling. Different smiles, some pleasant, some not. In the fourth photo, my reflections were pressed against their mirrors, hands on the glass, faces too close, staring out. The fifth photo showed empty mirrors, all of them. I was visible in the shot, standing in the center of the room, but none of the mirrors reflected me. They showed the room, the chair, the window. But where I should have been was nothing. I deleted the photos, all of them, erased them from my camera, my computer, the cloud backup. I tried to forget about the Richter building, about that impossible room. I couldn't. That night, I woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing. A notification. Someone had tagged me in a photo on social media. I opened it, still half asleep. It was one of the photos I'd deleted, the one showing me surrounded by wrong reflections. But I hadn't posted it. I checked who tagged me. The account had my name, my profile picture, but it wasn't my account. I clicked on it. The profile was full of photos, all of them me, but wrong. Me in places I'd never been. Me with people I didn't know. Me at different ages, wearing different clothes. Me sleeping in my bed, the photo taken from inside my room. I reported the account, blocked it, tried to shut down my phone. It wouldn't turn off. The screen stayed lit, cycling through those photos, faster and faster. Me. Wrong, 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 wrong. Then a new photo appeared, one I recognized. The mirror room, but this time, the photo was taken from inside one of the mirrors, looking out. It showed the empty room, the chair, and in the doorway, me standing there, the version of me that had run away. Except in this photo, I was turning around, about to see what was behind me in that hallway. My phone finally shut off. I sat in the dark, breathing hard, trying to think. This wasn't possible. None of this was possible. When morning came, I convinced myself it had been a nightmare. Stress and bad dreams mixing with real memories. I went to work, came home, lived my life. Then the photos started arriving by mail. No return address, just manila envelopes with my name and address. Inside, printed photos, all from the mirror room. But these showed things I hadn't photographed. Showed me sitting in the red chair. Showed me standing at the window. Showed me lying on the floor, eyes open, not moving. One envelope arrived every day for a week. I went to the police. Showed them the photos. Told them about the room, the mirrors, the fake social media account. They took a report. Said they'd look into it. I could tell they thought I was paranoid, maybe crazy. I didn't care. I needed it on record. I needed someone else to know. The 8th envelope arrived with something different. Not a photo, but a key. Brass, old-fashioned, and a note. You left something behind. Come get it. I knew where the key was for. The mirror room. Someone wanted me to go back. I wasn't going to. Obviously, I wasn't going to. But the envelopes kept coming. More photos. Me in my apartment. Me at work. Me walking to my car. Whoever was doing this was following me, watching me. I moved. Didn't tell anyone where I was going. Broke my lease. Left in the middle of the night. Set up in a new apartment across town. No forwarding address. 3 days later, an envelope arrived at my new place. How did they find me? How did they know? This envelope contained a single photo. The mirror room again. Shop from inside a mirror. But this time, there was someone sitting in the red chair. Me. But not me from months ago when I visited. Me from yesterday, wearing the clothes I'd worn yesterday. My hair styled the way I'd styled it yesterday. I'd never gone back to the Richter building. Never. I grabbed my laptop, searched for any information about the building. I found an article from 1937. A woman had died there, a suicide, jumped from the 9th floor. Her name was Constance Richter, daughter of the building's original owner. The article said she'd been obsessed with mirrors, had covered her apartment on the 7th floor with them, said she could see things in mirrors others couldn't, see other versions of herself, other worlds. The article called her disturbed. I think she was right. I think she found something in those mirrors, and it found her back. And now it has me. I'm writing this as a warning. If you photograph abandoned places, if you explore where you shouldn't, be careful of mirrors. Be careful of rooms that are too perfect, too preserved. Some places aren't abandoned. They're waiting. I'm going back to the Richter building tonight. I have to. The photos that arrived today showed my family, my sister, my mom, standing in the mirror room. They've never been there, but somehow they are. And if I don't do something, if I don't figure out how to stop this, those versions of them in the mirrors might become the only versions. I don't know if I'll make it out. I don't know what's waiting for me in that room. But I'm bringing my camera. If I don't come back, if something happens, look for my photos. They'll tell the truth about what happened. Just don't look too closely at the mirrors. Don't look too long at the reflections. Because sometimes they look back, and sometimes they step through. Story 7. The support group met every Thursday at 7 p.m. in the basement of Grace Lutheran Church. I'd been attending for 6 weeks trying to process my brother's death when I noticed something strange. There were 12 of us in the circle, sharing our grief, telling our stories. But every week, one person would be missing. Different person each time. Rachel was gone week 2. Marcus didn't show week 4. Last week, it was Denise. They never came back. I asked the group leader, a kindly older woman named Patricia, where people went when they stopped attending. She'd smile sadly and say healing takes many forms. Some people find what they need and move on, but I'd seen their faces before they disappeared. They weren't healing. They were getting worse. Thinner, darker circles under their eyes, speaking in whispers. And then gone. Week 7, I arrived early. The church basement was empty except for Patricia, setting up the circle of chairs. I helped her, and while we worked, I asked casually what happened to Rachel. Patricia kept arranging chairs, didn't look at me. She found peace, Patricia said. That's wonderful for her. How did she find it? I pressed. What method worked? Patricia finally looked up. Her smile was the same kindly expression as always, but her eyes were different, harder. That's not something we discuss with the group. It's a private journey. The meeting that night had 11 people, 1 missing. Sharon, a woman who'd lost her son last year, wasn't there. We went around the circle sharing as usual, but I couldn't concentrate. I was thinking about Rachel, Marcus, Denise, and now Sharon. What private journey were they on? After the meeting, I lingered, pretended to use the bathroom. I heard Patricia talking to someone upstairs in the main church. I crept up the stairs, listened. You did well today, Patricia was saying to someone. The transformation is almost complete. Just one more session. I'll make the arrangements. I peeked around the corner. Patricia was talking to Sharon. The same Sharon who hadn't been at the meeting, but she looked different, younger somehow, healthier, smiling. "Thank you," Sharon said. "I never believed it would really work. But I can feel him again. My son. He's with me now. Always with me." Patricia hugged her. "That's the gift. That's what the group offers to those ready to receive it." I ducked back down the stairs before they could see me. My heart was pounding. What had I just witnessed? I skipped the next week's meeting, told Patricia I was sick. I used the time to research instead. Looked into the church, into Patricia, into the support group's history. Grace Lutheran had a dark past. In the 1960s, a pastor named Silas Grantham had run experiments in the basement. He believed grief was a doorway, that profound loss opened people to spiritual experiences others couldn't access. He'd tried to weaponize that openness, to use bereaved individuals as conduits for contact with the dead. The experiments ended when 3 participants died during a session. Silas was defrocked, institutionalized. He died in '94, but the church kept the basement locked for decades. It only reopened 5 years ago when Patricia donated money for renovations. Patricia, I looked her up. Her maiden name was Grantham, Silas's daughter. I went back to the next meeting armed with this information, determined to confront her, to expose whatever she was doing. But when I arrived, something was wrong. The usual circle was there, but everyone looked different. Healthy, happy, almost glowing. Patricia welcomed me with that same kind smile. "We've been waiting for you. Tonight is your night." "What?" I asked. "Your transformation. You've been attending long enough. You've shown commitment to healing. Now it's time for you to receive the gift." I backed toward the stairs. "I don't want any gift. I'm leaving." The others stood, moved to block my exit. Not threatening, not aggressive, just standing there, smiling. "You'll understand soon," Patricia said. "The grief you're carrying, the pain of losing your brother, it doesn't have to hurt anymore. We can take it away. We can give you connection instead of loss." I ran, shoved past them, took the stairs 3 at a time. I burst out of the church into cool night air, fumbled for my car keys. Behind me, I heard them coming, not running, just walking, steady, inevitable. I got my car started, drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see them standing in the church parking lot watching me go. I called the police, tried to explain. They took a report, sent an officer to check out the church. He found nothing. No support group, no Patricia, no evidence of anything wrong. The church administrator said they'd never hosted a grief support group in the basement. Said the basement was still locked, hadn't been used in years. But I'd been there 7 weeks. I had a schedule, a contact number for Patricia. Except when I called the number, it was disconnected. When I checked the emails confirming meeting times, they weren't in my inbox anymore. Deleted, like they'd never existed. I tried to find the other group members, looked them up on social media, searched public records. Nothing. No Rachel, no Marcus, no Denise. I found Sharon, though. Found her obituary. She died 3 years ago. The son she'd lost had died in 2008. I drove back to the church in daylight, demanded to see the basement. The administrator let me, probably to prove I was crazy. We went downstairs. The basement was dusty, full of old furniture, clearly unused. No circle of chairs, no carpet, no lights. But in the far corner, I saw something. A door. Newer than the rest of the basement, the wood not as weathered. "Where does that go?" I asked. The administrator frowned. "What door?" I pointed. "That one." She looked where I was pointing. There's no door there. That's just wall. I walked over to it, touched the handle. It was cold, real, solid. The administrator stood behind me, and when I looked at her reflection in the door's small window, she was gone. The basement behind me was different in the reflection. The circle of chairs was back. People were sitting in them, and Patricia was at the center looking at me through the glass, smiling. "Come join us," her reflection mouthed. "We're all here together. Forever together." I ran again. Haven't been back, but I still get emails sometimes, invitations to Thursday meetings, and sometimes, late at night, I hear my brother's voice, calling my name, telling me he's waiting, telling me the group can bring us back together. I don't go. I won't go. But the grief is so heavy, the loss so profound, and I understand now why people didn't come back from those meetings. They found what they were looking for: connection, peace, an end to suffering. They just had to give up something in return. Something small. Their lives, their identities, their place in the real world. Patricia's father was right. Grief is a doorway, but you have to be careful what you let through, and more careful what pulls you through from the other side. If you're in a support group, if someone offers you transformation or healing, that sounds too good to be true, run. If people stop attending, and the leader says they've found peace, run. Because some kinds of peace aren't rest, they're erasure. And once you accept that gift, there's no coming back. Story 8. The hiking trail that runs behind Mercer's Ridge has been closed since October. There's caution tape across the trailhead and a sign that says danger, area unstable, do not enter. But I know the real reason it's closed. I was there the day they found the bones. I'd been hiking that trail since I was a kid, knew every turn, every landmark. The Twisted Oak, 2 miles in, the creek crossing at mile 4, the abandoned ranger station at the summit. I went up there every weekend, needed the solitude, the exercise, the distance from my life down in town. It was early September when I first noticed the cairns. Someone had been stacking rocks along the trail, creating little towers of balanced stones, art maybe, or trail markers. They were beautiful in their simplicity, appearing every quarter mile or so, perfectly balanced despite irregular shapes. I didn't think much of it. Hikers leave things behind all the time, messages, markers, trash. But the cairns multiplied. Every weekend there were more, different sizes now, some just 3 stones high, others massive, 6 feet tall, defying gravity. I started taking photos, posting them online. My hiking group friends commented, asking who was building them. No one knew. Theories ranged from a local artist to spiritual practitioners to bored teenagers. I decided to solve the mystery. Went up on a weekday when the trail would be emptiest, hoping to catch whoever was building the cairns in the act. I hiked to the halfway point, found a spot off trail with a view of the path, and waited. Hours passed. I saw 2 other hikers, both heading down the mountain, neither stopping to build anything. I was about to give up when I heard it. Rocks clicking together, the distinctive sound of stone on stone. I crept through the underbrush toward the sound. There, in a small clearing, someone was building a cairn, but I couldn't see them clearly. They were moving too fast, hands blurring, stacking stones with impossible speed and precision. I stepped closer, branch cracking under my foot. The figure froze, then turned. It wasn't a person. The shape was wrong, too tall, proportions off, limbs bending at angles that weren't quite right. And its face. Where a face should have been was smooth stone, featureless, with 2 dark pits where eyes might go. I ran. Didn't think, just crashed back through the underbrush onto the trail and sprinted down the mountain. I didn't stop until I reached my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. What had I seen? I tried to convince myself it was a person in a costume, some kind of mask or art project. But the movement, the proportions, the speed, that wasn't human. I posted about it online, in the hiking groups, asking if anyone else had seen anything strange on Mercer's Ridge. Most responses were jokes. You saw Bigfoot. It was aliens. Lay off the edibles before hiking. But one message was different. A private DM from someone named Trail Watcher, created this month. No other posts or activity. Stay away from Mercer's Ridge. The builders aren't what they seem. People who get too close don't come back the same. I tried to respond, ask what they meant. The account was deleted. I should have listened, should have stayed away. But I kept thinking about what I'd seen, kept trying to rationalize it. One more visit. Daylight, weekday. I'd hike fast and stick to the main trail. No investigating. Just satisfy my curiosity that there was a normal explanation. I went up the following Tuesday. The trail was empty, eerily quiet. No birdsong, no wind, just my footsteps and breathing. The cairns were everywhere now, hundreds of them, lining both sides of the trail, clustering in the woods, creating formations that looked almost like structures. Buildings made of balanced stones, and all of them were fresh, built recently. I took photos, walked quickly, told myself I'd turn around at the next bend. That's when I saw her, a woman standing off trail stacking rocks. She was human, definitely human. I could see her features, her hiking clothes, her backpack. Relief flooded me. Just another hiker. Hey, I called out. She turned, smiled. These are beautiful, I said, gesturing to the cairns. Did you build all of them? She nodded, still smiling. Walked toward me. As she got closer, I noticed her eyes. They were wrong. The iris is too dark, pupils too wide, and her movements, now that she was closer, were off. Too smooth, like she was gliding rather than walking. I'm adding to the collection, she said. Her voice was pleasant, normal. Would you like to help? I should get going, I said, backing away. Actually, I'm running late. Please, she said, still smiling. It only takes a moment. She reached out, grabbed my wrist. Her hand was cold, hard, more like stone than flesh. I yanked away, stumbled backward. She kept coming, still smiling. Join us. Build with us. You'll never want to leave. I turned and ran for the second time on that mountain. Behind me, I heard her footsteps, but not on the trail. In the woods, moving faster than should be possible through dense underbrush. I risked a glance back. She was running on all fours now, her body contorting, limbs lengthening. The human disguise was failing, revealing something else beneath. Something made of stone and shadow. I didn't make it far before I tripped, went down hard on the trail. She was on me in seconds, her stone hands pinning my shoulders. Up close, I could see her face melting away, the features sliding off to reveal smooth rock underneath. Join us, the thing said with her voice. Build with us. We're creating something beautiful, something eternal. I thrashed, screamed, managed to grab a rock from the trail, swung it at her head. The impact made a hollow crack. She recoiled, released me for just a second. I scrambled up, ran again. This time, I made it. Somehow. Burst out of the trailhead, found two other hikers preparing to head up. I screamed at them to get away, to call the police. They thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. The police came, went up the trail with search and rescue. They found the cairns, hundreds of them, and they found bones, human bones, Dozens of skeletons scattered through the woods, incorporated into some of the larger cairn structures. Bones that had been there for years, decades in some cases. Missing hikers, people who'd vanished on that trail over the past 40 years. All found in a 3-mile radius, all surrounded by cairns. The trail was closed immediately. Forensic teams spent weeks excavating, identifying remains. They found 37 people. 37. But they never found what I saw. Never found the builders. The official story is that someone, a serial killer, had been murdering hikers and hiding their bodies. That the cairns were some kind of ritual. The FBI is still investigating, but I know better. I know what I saw. Those weren't human killers. Those were something else. Something that built and built and built, creating structures out of stone and bone, luring people to join their eternal construction project. The cairns are gone now, destroyed by investigators. The trail remains closed, but sometimes late at night I think about her words. We're creating something beautiful, something eternal, and I wonder how long those things have been there, building in the woods. I wonder how many more trails have their own builders, their own collections, because cairns are everywhere now. Every hiking trail, every park. Little stacks of balanced stones that seem innocent, artistic. But now, when I see them, I think about stone faces and cold hands. I think about the woman who wasn't a woman, who invited me to build with her forever. I don't hike anymore. Can't bring myself to walk any trail that has cairns. And if you do hike, if you see those balanced stones, don't disturb them. Don't add to them. And for God's sake, if someone invites you to build with them, run. Because some art projects don't want admirers. They want participants. And once you join, you'll be building forever. Story 9. I manage IT for a small accounting firm. Nothing glamorous, just making sure the servers stay up and helping partners who forget their passwords. Last month, we hired someone new. Marcus. He was in his late 20s. Quiet, competent, kept to himself mostly. I set up his workstation, showed him the network structure, gave him his credentials. Standard onboarding. A week after he started, the requests began. Marcus would email me, usually late in the evening after most people had gone home. Always the same type of request. I can't access my files. I'm locked out of my account. My computer isn't connecting to the server. I'd remote into his machine, check the logs. Nothing wrong. His credentials were fine. His computer was connecting properly. His files were all there. I'd tell him this, and he'd thank me, say it must have been a temporary glitch. But the emails continued. Every few days, same issues. Or new ones. My screen is flickering. I'm hearing strange sounds from my hard drive. My mouse is moving on its own. I started to get annoyed. Was this guy tech illiterate? Was he pranking me? I checked his resume. Computer science degree, 5 years experience. He should know better. I decided to talk to him in person, figure out what was really going on. I found him at his desk after hours, the office mostly empty. "Hey Marcus," I said, "can we talk about these IT requests?" He looked up, and I was struck by how tired he looked. Dark circles, pale skin. "Yeah," he said. "I know I've been bothering you a lot. I'm sorry. Look, I checked everything. Your setup is fine. There's nothing wrong with your computer. Are you having issues with the software or—" "It's not the computer," Marcus interrupted. "It's him. Him, the other guy. The one who works here." I felt a chill. What other guy? Marcus gestured around the empty office. "I see him sometimes. Late, when I'm working. He sits at the desk next to mine, the one that's empty. He uses a computer that isn't there, and sometimes He looks at me. I didn't know what to say. Marcus, there's no one else here after hours. You're alone. I know how it sounds, he said. Believe me. But I've seen him. And my computer. It acts up when he's around. Like he's interfering with it somehow. I suggested Marcus talk to HR. Or maybe take some time off. Stress could cause hallucinations. He nodded and thanked me. Said he'd think about it. I left feeling uneasy. The next day, I checked which desk was next to Marcus. Cubicle 14. I pulled up the office records, saw who'd been assigned there previously. Ryan Kelso. He'd worked at the firm for 3 years. Junior accountant. Died in March. Heart attack at his desk. He'd been working late, alone. They found him the next morning slumped over his keyboard. We'd left the cubicle empty out of respect. Planned to hire someone for it eventually. Marcus's desk was cubicle 13, right next to Ryan's old spot. I should have told Marcus immediately. Should have explained that yes, someone died there, that what he was experiencing might be grief or stress manifesting as sightings. But I didn't. I was curious now. I set up a camera. Told Marcus it was to troubleshoot his computer issues, to catch whatever was causing the glitches. Aimed it at his cubicle and the empty one next to it. I'd review the footage, prove nothing supernatural was happening. The first few nights showed exactly what I expected. Marcus working alone, nothing unusual. But on the 4th night, something changed. At 11:27 p.m., Marcus was typing. Then he stopped, went very still, stared at cubicle 14. On the camera, the empty cubicle was empty. But Marcus was looking at something, watching it. His face showed fear, but also recognition. He said something, though the camera had no audio, appeared to be listening to a response. Then he quickly packed up his things and left. I emailed him. What happened last night? Saw you leave in a hurry. His response was terse. He was there again. Asked me to help him with something. Said he needed to finish his work. I don't know what to do. I watched the footage again. Tried to see what Marcus was seeing. Nothing. Just empty cubicle. But then I noticed the computers. When Marcus was staring at cubicle 14, his own computer screen was flickering. And in the reflection on his monitor, for just a frame, there was something. A shape. Someone sitting in cubicle 14. I went through the footage frame by frame. In Marcus's monitor reflection, I could clearly see a figure. Man, business casual clothing, sitting at the empty desk. Working on a computer that wasn't there, hands typing on a keyboard that didn't exist. Ryan Kelso. It had to be. I pulled up photos from the firm's website archive. There was Ryan, same build, same posture. I printed a still from the camera footage and compared it to Ryan's photo. It matched. What the hell was happening? I went to the office that night, after everyone left. Sat at Marcus's desk, turned on his computer, waited. At 11:30 exactly, the temperature dropped. My breath came out in a visible cloud, and I felt it. Someone else there. I turned slowly toward cubicle 14. Ryan was sitting there, not transparent, not ghostly, solid, real, working at his computer. He looked up, saw me, and smiled. "Hey," he said, "you're new. Can you help me with this formula? I'm trying to finish before the deadline." I couldn't speak. Ryan kept talking, explaining some accounting problem, asking for my input. He seemed completely unaware that he was dead, completely unaware that his cubicle was empty. His computer unplugged, his desk cleared months ago. I managed to stand, back away. Ryan looked confused. "Where are you going? I need your help. The client presentation is tomorrow." I ran, like Marcus had. Got out of that office, stood in the parking lot shaking. The next day, I told management everything. They brought in someone, a specialist. Spiritual cleansing, they called it. Sage and prayers and blessed water. Doesn't work. Ryan's still there. Marcus quit last week. I don't blame him. But here's the thing that keeps me awake. I checked the records more carefully. Ryan wasn't the only one. Over the firm's 40-year history, 3 other employees had died at their desks. Heart attacks, aneurysm, 1 suicide. Different cubicles, different eras, and I've started noticing them too. Late at night, when I'm working on the servers, figures at desks that should be empty, people working on computers that aren't there. All of them oblivious, still trying to meet deadlines that have long passed. The dead don't leave, not when they die at work. They just keep working, forever in some echo of their last moments. And the worst part? I think they're contagious. Marcus started seeing Ryan. Then I started seeing Ryan. Now I'm starting to see the others too. How long before I'm putting in so many hours that I collapse at my own desk? How long before I become one of them, trapped in endless overtime, never realizing I'm already gone? I'm putting in my resignation tomorrow, getting out before this place claims me too. And if you work late nights, if you're alone in the office more than you're home, be careful. The work will always be there. The deadlines never really end. And some companies don't let their employees go, even after death, even after the lights go out and the living go home. The workers remain, forever typing, forever meeting deadlines, forever too busy to realize they died years ago and nobody told them to stop. And that's where we'll end tonight. To everyone who made it all the way through, thank you so much for being here. Your presence makes these stories feel less like speaking into the void and more like sharing something meaningful. I hope tonight gave you that perfect blend of unease and fascination, the kind that makes you think twice about everyday things. There's something special about all of us being here together, connected by our love of the dark and the unexplained. I'll be back soon with more tales to keep you company in the quiet hours. Until then, sleep well, if you can, and try not to dwell too much on the stories you heard tonight. Though if they do stick with you, well, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Before you go, if you enjoyed this, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Thanks again for spending your time with me. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.